We're handing over now to Malcolm Garrett, who's going to chair the next session. He's the creative director of Images & Co., a communications design consultancy which is based in London. And it has a reputation globally for his influence on graphic design and popular culture. He has landmark designs for clients including Buzzcocks, Duran Duran, Boy George, Simple Minds, Peter Gabriel, Barclays, Accenture, BT, many, many others. He became the first new media designer appointed as royal designer in 2000. He was nominated for the Prince Philip Designers Prize in 1998. He took over in 2013 Master of the Faculty of Royal Designers, and he has many, many, many ambassadorial roles. Member of the Science Museum Advisory Board, Samisha Black Awards Committee, and he's founder of the 5D World Builders at the 5D Institute in California. We're very lucky to have him, actually, because he's often not in the country, and he's also very busy, but here he is, in person, in the flesh, Malcolm Garrett, and he's going to chair the session. Thank you, Malcolm.
So, today's discussion is about the Internet of Things. These are some of the things that we might discuss today. We might discuss what is the Internet of Things, how will it affect the world we live in, how would we like it to work, which is what the whole festival is about, and we'll hopefully hear from each of us what we're each contributing. I'm going to be introducing my colleagues to my left, which I think I'll do now, and I've asked them to sit in the order that I've got my notes in front of me. So on my left here is Adrian Hon. Adrian is co-founder and CEO at Six to Start, creators of game-like stories and story-like games, including the world's best-selling smartphone fitness game, Zombies Run, with over 1 million players. Six to Start's clients have included Disney, BBC, Channel 4, and Penguin, and the company has won multiple awards, including Best of Show at SXSW, or South by Southwest. Adrian is author of A History of the Future in 100 Objects, and has written a column about technology for The Telegraph. He originally trained as a neuroscientist at Cambridge, UCSD, and Oxford. To his left is Kevin Palmer and Matt Wade, who are from Kin. Founded in 2008, Kin is a research and design studio in Farringdon, specializing in smart spaces, interactive objects, and installations. At the heart of Kin is a workshop, a multifunctional space that serves as a platform for prototyping, project development, and material-led creative thinking. Kin's team of 14 come from a diverse set of backgrounds and is made up of designers, developers, and makers, and we hope to be hearing some of what they've been up to shortly. As well as commercial work, they often work with arts and cultural organizations. They have close connections to education, teaching, and running workshops at leading academic institutions nationally and internationally. And to their left, last but very much not least, is Sarah Weldon. Sarah is a science communicator and CEO of environmental and STEM education charity Oceans Project. In 2015, Sarah will use wearable technology and a virtual learning platform to bring her world-first solo row around Britain alive for over 17,000 young people worldwide, including those who would otherwise have no access to school. Sarah is a keen STEM ambassador and Google Glass explorer and a fellow of the Royal Geographical Society. So that's our panel today. I think we're going to hear some interesting stuff from them. But first, I guess the reason that I've been asked to chair this panel is I attended a Think-In event in this building a few weeks ago, which was very interesting, and there was a link up to Turkey, and that got me thinking because I'm working on a project called Vital, which is about the future of smart cities. I'm going to put up the description of what it is so you can read and make sense of that. That is the official description of this project. It's a research and development project linking two cities and a number of technology partners throughout Europe, and with a view to creating a platform which would be usable and useful for the Internet of Things. The smart cities in question that we're referring to are London and Istanbul, each of which have their own different kind of challenges and objectives for getting involved in this project. Istanbul is concerned with traffic and transport management, about getting people to a destination and how the Internet of Things might help that. And Camden is concerned with the destination itself, concerned with what people are doing and how to empower people at a street level. So there's kind of interesting dichotomy and overlap between the two cities. These are the partners. It's a huge consortium led by by Insight at the National University of Ireland in Galway. This is Ireland's biggest research institute for data analytics. As I say, the city partners are Camden Town and the Istanbul municipality. And my company, Images & Co, is working with Camden here in London, and we're working with the Istanbul Technical University in Istanbul, who are looking at the design requirements. And then there are 5 technical partners in Greece, France, Spain, Italy, looking at the whole technical infrastructure, which I'm not going to talk technology today. I'm concerned with how technologies are useful for people. And so I'll kind of show you this to scare you off. This is like a breakdown of the technologies that are being worked on. Effectively, it's to take data streams from sensors in cities, whether open source or dedicated sensors, to create if you like, a layer or a platform, a common platform, which can then be accessed by individuals and companies or organizations to analyze that data and deliver useful programming and useful tools for people and companies in the real world. So the aim of the project is to create this layer and which would make the Internet of Things usable. I think it's interesting to note that for about the last 20 years I've been talking about the future, and here I am still talking about the future, but this whole festival is celebrating the 25 years of the World Wide Web. The World Wide Web, in its way, made the Internet useful for a much broader range of people, and I'm interested now in how things and objects and machines talk to one another, and how that will become useful. And I'm interested in whether that's going to be another 25 years before any of that comes into fruition. So the ambitions of Vital is an Internet of Things for everyone. We're interested in smart cities for smart citizens, and what I mean by that is to enable, to make cities smarter, so to enable successful and prosperous cities to make informed choices, to participate fully in the governance and development of the city, and for people to make informed choices at the time and the place of those choices. One description of Vital has been as a way of using technology to program your own world. So that's the kind of ambitions. What were our objectives? Immediate objectives are to develop this usable platform. We're part of the team to explore useful outcomes and to prototype some of those outcomes. We're kind of very aware that, and these are some of the challenges. I'll let you read those. We're very aware that whilst we've got 7 countries and 2 cities involved, we're very aware that whilst we've got an adequate funding for this project, which is a 3-year project, we're no competition for the likes of Microsoft or Google or other big corporations, which can devote many thousands of times the budget that we have to work in this area. But what we do have is we are independent, we're collaborative, and we're open. We're interested in open innovation, open data, and this is about very much in the spirit of this festival. So, as I say, I got invited to chair this panel because I'm involved in this project, which I kind of wrote to Jude about, and just to tell her about it, and the reply was, "That sounds fantastic. Come and do this thing," which is great. So I'm very excited to be here, and I'd now like to hand over to first Adrian to tell me something more about what
Sure. Thank you. That was a good introduction. Just to sort of step back from what the Internet of Things is, for me, the way I always look at it is, it's about the progress of computing technology. Walking into this space, there's a Next Cube computer set up outside there. It's a big grey boxy thing with the CRT monitor. And that's a computer that Tim Berners-Lee used to go and design the World Wide Web about 25 years ago. And if you consider that computer cost several £1,000s back then, 25 years ago, and this phone is many, many, many times faster than that computer, and it can get faster internet speeds without being connected to any wires, and it costs much, much less. And if we look into the future, that's just still moving. A couple of weeks ago, Apple announced an Apple Watch. I wear too many devices. I've got this. I realize I've also got a smartwatch, and I've also got a Fitbit. All these different gadgets kind of trying to measure my health and trying to give me information. And so we're seeing the sort of size and the capabilities, the size of computers dropping every single year, and the capabilities increasing every single year, and their wireless capabilities increasing every single year, and the costs getting smaller. So whereas once it might have seemed ridiculous for everyone to have a computer in their pocket, now it's perfectly possible, perfectly reasonable for people to have effectively 3 computers on them doing different things. And so if we jump forward 25 years in the future, probably every single chair, every single piece of paving slab could potentially have some kind of sensor, although they won't be like an iPhone. And I think that's the sort of thing that has kind of led what I do in wearing one of my hats as a game designer of a game like Zombies Run into the things we do, because Zombies Run is about making people more motivated to run. So we want to help people get fitter. And we have about 1 million players, and they've run about 32 million kilometers. And we're very happy that people have been able to sort of improve their health through the game. And that was made possible by just one aspect of this kind of miniaturization of technology. And so I think what's going to be really interesting looking at the Internet of Things is what the capabilities are going to be. I don't think Johnny Ive thought that the iPhone would be used for people to kind of run away from zombies. I don't think that people have any idea what the Internet of Things will be able to do, but that's going to be the interesting thing over the next 20 years.
Thanks, Adrian. Kevin and Matt?
I've got a couple of slides, actually.
Okay. I just tried clicking onto the next slide and it didn't go, so I hope they are there.
So we're a design studio. We make a lot of things for other people. We usually work to brief, but we also do self-commissioned projects. This is us in Farringdon, built around a workshop space where we print 3D objects, and we use metal as well as electronics. We build a lot of things with computers in. Let's see if I can go on. Have you got the other one, actually? I was going to show just another slide of some of the sort of things that we make and how the relevance of the Internet of Things to us, or connected objects. And we have, here it is. We come from a sort of technology background, Kev and I. We worked in multimedia, and we met in '98 originally, and we worked together from 2000. And kin since 2008. And we do things like retail installations, and even those things, the picture that's top left is of a shop in New York, and it's controlled. It's a mechanical window, and it has cogs that work in the windows beneath, and they have screens inside, and the screens are controlled, and the way it all works is controlled from London, from King's Cross. So before we were thinking about this thing called the Internet of Things, I know the term's actually been around for a while, but in terms of a common phrase, we were connecting things up to the internet, and then we started to make objects like there's a boat bottom left, which is a wooden toy for children to learn about the way boats work, and it's a load of wooden components with a computer inside, and depending on the wooden components they put together, the way it behaves on a screen changes. So through the physical playing through different objects, they start to affect different things. And I suppose in a way, projects like that we started to think about the way machines talk to other machines. And then top right is a project about badges. This is a badge that does something with ultrasonic, but we've also made a badge that is a pollution sensor. And depending where you are in the city and the pollution levels, if they go over a certain threshold, it generates an email to the local MP from that area. So telling them about the level, where you were, and what you were doing, for example. So I was walking through the park and I noticed that the pollution levels are this. I'd like you to do something about it. So it creates a record of it, but it puts it into a language-based or a human form. And then finally, we're starting to look at materials. So down the bottom is a load of concrete objects, and they have some sensors in, and they don't do much at all, actually. They're just ID based. But the idea, we're quite interested in sort of the fabric of cities, for example. So how you might embed technology in building materials, not so much just about the material itself, but its connection to other materials around it. So how a brick forms part of a house, which is a system, and how the system forms part of the city, which is another bigger system, and how that forms part of a nation or a program or a plan, and how that fits with politics, etc. So the problem is for us, we don't have at our disposal yet a common language or a common set of protocols for how we get these things to talk to each other. So we're quite interested in the development of the systems and how this sort of plays out over the next few years. So as designers, we can start to build on our thinking as a design studio to create objects that fit into this model of the Internet of Things.
I don't have a technological background at all, really. It's all quite alien to me. And actually, as we've stood here just now waiting to come on, I noticed that everybody was looking down and kind of looking at their phones.
Broken phones.
Yes, they're broken phones and dropping them on the floor. And even in the audience, people are kind of on their phones now, tweeting and doing things. And as somebody who's about to set off on a kind of 14-week journey, rowing 3,000 miles around the British coastline as a world-first solo row, I really wanted to find technology that would allow me to share that journey and to share all this data that's collected with the 17,000 students that are using this virtual learning platform. So as luck would have it, really, it's kind of developed, and I've been given lots of different wearable technology that I can use to bring the ocean alive for kids, even in Brighton, who haven't been to the sea before, which is kind of shocking. And even in Britain, kids that don't realise that Britain is an island and that we're connected to the sea. So I'm going to be using, for example, smart shorts, which actually monitor all my muscle movements, and will share those with the students so they can actually see what my muscles are doing all the time. And that's kind of training now and also while I'm at sea. And I have something called a bioharness, which is similar to what's used on the International Space Station. And that allows the astronauts to kind of get on with their daily work. But the guys on Earth can then look at things like their temperature, their heart rate, all their vital signs. So I'm going to be using the same thing to share all of that data with my students. And probably the next interesting bit of wearable technology is kind of a headband I'm going to wear, which I'll use to measure my REM sleep and my brain waves. And as a kind of neuropsychologist, that's quite exciting for me, especially as I'll be rowing for 2 hours at a time and then only resting or sleeping for a maximum of 2 hours at a time. So I'm probably going to end up hallucinating and things, I think, at some point. And then finally, I'm now a glass explorer, and this really allows me to kind of be hands-free. So I can be rowing, and if I see a basking shark or a whale or a dolphin, just by winking, I can actually take a photo or film and then share that data with the children on the platform, but also with any scientists that are interested in kind of finding more about what's around the British coastline. But it also means I can ask questions, so I can ask Google questions about the weather, I can look at the stars and compare that to how the Vikings rode around Britain, how they use celestial navigation, and I'm also using things like Zombie Run as part of my training, all by this little screen up here, so it's pretty impressive.
Okay, thanks. Well, there's quite a few interesting projects there. I wonder whether it would help if we if we could get a definition for what the Internet of Things is. It's a term that I only heard of relatively recently, and I've got very interested and excited about it. I'm very interested in the way computers and machines and things talk to one another. So I just thought to open this up. Well, I wonder whether each of you would want to give your view succinctly. What is the Internet of Things? So, Kevin, you're nodding at me, so you've got something to say there.
Well, as Matt said, it's a term that's been around for a while now, and I think we all sort of look at the cliche of the smart fridge and putting that bottle of milk or taking the milk out of the fridge, realizing it's empty, and then before you know it, you've already ordered one from Sainsbury's and it gets delivered to your door because the fridge knows that you're out of milk. But those sort of scenarios are kind of a bit old now, and it's interesting to look to see how new technologies such as Neurable's technologies, Google Near and Apple's iBeacon, how they can make spaces smart, how they can make cities smart, how we can create these contextually aware objects which know motion and temperature and can start to link up different data in different ways and really enhance people's lives. I think it's also interesting to see the flip of what's happening as well. We're seeing, I mean, as you've got your smart shorts, we're also seeing garments that have smart pockets which completely close off your devices to being communicated with or hacked. So you can put your phone, your smartphone and your NFC cards and what have you into a pocket which completely shields them from being communicated with in any way for people who are worried about Big Brother and everything that's happening and in terms of yourself being contextualized in these spaces. I think in our work it's really interesting. We can look to the more educational side of things in museum spaces, how we can make objects in museums come alive, how they can tell their story, how we can interpret their story in different ways for different age groups with different devices, how we can make objects that seem boring, spaces that seem boring and old and dusty come alive, especially for kids in different ways. And then also looking at retail as well. What are the opportunities there on a much more commercial level? How can we start to do things that aren't intrusive but are actually helping the consumer in different ways? And I think those moving in different boundaries between shopping online, shopping in spaces, and the blur of that boundary that's currently happening.
I think there's maybe I'm wrong. I think for me there's an important distinction between the way we understand the internet as something that comes through a browser, so something we see through Google Chrome or Safari or Internet Explorer, to an object which has a connection to the internet that starts to transmit or have conversations either to people or to other machines. So cattle on a farm might be tracked by wearing a sensor so that the farmer knows where the cattle are, or they know numbers or what vaccinations they've had. And in a sense, those sort of communications between these remote objects are Internet of Things. And the internet as a word is something we understand in terms of the web we want and so on. We understand the internet. It's become this domestic thing, but actually I'm more interested in the internet.
Well,
I think the Internet of Things
it is
more
interesting
powerful.
that the web and the internet have become interchangeable terms when they're two different things.
Yes.
Or rather, the web is something that exists because of the internet. And
Exactly,
vice
but we
versa.
understand. I think
Yes.
when we talk about the internet, we think of the web
Yeah.
in a common. I think the trouble is things like the fridge are examples that make it very domestic, the Internet of Things. But I think it'll be much more to do with manufacturing and high volume processes and adding an extra. For me, it's like a augmented barcode that will go on things, so we start to understand what they are, but in the context of that object. So barcode's like one system that fits all, but chair will have a class of objects that has a context.
What I'm hearing is the possible benefits of an Internet of Things is a balance between information being made available that will inform your ability to make choices, so you get more information, versus information that just manages itself without any input, and that balance between information that's just being given that you know nothing about. So as a person, you are being tracked. You are, you are a person in Camden High Street, and you don't have any choice about whether you can choose not to go there, but you don't have any choice about that information about your individual footfall being given away because you're on camera. Versus, well, I'm in Camden, and the internet knows my preferences, knows what particular music I like, so it might direct me towards a venue or direct me towards a record shop that I happen to be walking past. So I wonder, what are your views? Do you think there are, what are the privacy issues with this? If there's a lot of criticism of the UK being, a country that's on CCTV, and this feels like, an extension of that, and a much more invasive extension of that. Do we have any views on those privacy issues?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting subject matter, and I think we're giving up our privacy in one ways to get those sort of benefits that, I am in Camden, I would like to know where that record shop is, etc. But likewise, that record shop knows where I am, and Camden Council knows where I am, etc., etc. So, my daughter leaves for school, my 12-year-old daughter, every morning. She leaves her radio on, she leaves her light on in her bedroom. Surely, hopefully in a year's time, there'll be an app on her phone that will alert her to that as she leaves the front door, and she can turn both of those devices
that
off
already exists.
and save me some money. And I'm sure that already exists.
Yeah.
If I could get a similar one to get my 8-year-old to flush the toilet as well, would be a benefit. But then, are they really learning? Are they really remembering things? Just as I can't remember.
Do you want the 8-year-old to
numbers.
learn how to flush the toilet or to remember to?
Well,
Or do you
exactly,
want the toilet to
exactly.
flush itself? So it's something you don't need to bother about.
But then I don't want also the whole world knowing when I leave for work in the morning and when my daughter leaves for work in the morning and all those sort of issues as well. So, I guess it's an interesting debate and one that will carry on. But we're still exploring the answers.
There's also this. I think people hear about like the NSA stuff, for example, and people get incensed, but they don't change their passwords.
No.
It's like, do people really care? I think they should care. But
Do you
there's
think it's a
strange-
generational thing? Do you think
Yeah.
people growing up are less caring than
People give
us older
stuff
folk?
away very easily.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure. I can see where you're coming from, but I think that me changing my password is not going to stop the NSA. If they want to go and get into my data, then there's no problem with them getting into my data. And I think that's, the problem. I don't worry about it too much because I've done nothing wrong, so I have nothing to hide. The issue, of course, with that statement is that what we're seeing, and we're sort of jumping sideways, but I'll come back to the Internet of Things, is that the kind of the ways in which intelligence agencies will determine who they want to look at is by friends of friends or friends of friends of friends. So even if you feel and you have no cause to be of interest to any intelligence services, and they can and will look at your information, whatever your password is, because whether that's by intercepting your internet data or by just breaking into your home and putting stuff on your computer, that's quite easy if you're MI5. And I think the issue with the Internet of Things is that not only do we have more ways in which we can be tracked using our phones, but also using cameras and other sensors around the environment, but also I think we have less understanding exactly of what these things are doing to us. Back when the only way to sort of communicate people at a distance was through letters, was through phone calls, or was through email, people could be quite conscious about what they did. But now there is no opting in. When you walk down Camden High Street, you will be tracked, and whether you really like it or not. And that's an open question as to what we as a democracy want to do about that.
But as more people are being tracked, does that actually, ironically, give you more anonymity? I mean, it's easier to hide in a crowd than it is in an empty room.
Well, I mean, machine learning, I think, is getting very powerful now, and that's the issue. That there's billions of dollars being pumped into software that is attempting to identify people who look nervous at airports. Which, on the one hand, great. I don't want my airplane being blown up, but at the same time, I'm not convinced that's really such a big problem.
I mean, a lot of that is hinging on the interpretation of fear.
Yeah.
It's like, are you nervous because you're going to blow the plane up, or are you nervous because
Or someone who
because you don't want to fly, or are you nervous because you're flying to see a sick friend? And so there's all many reasons. So
or less kind of dramatically, just someone who looks shifty on Camden High Street. Do we go and send in the police drone to zap him because he's got
shifty on Camden?
He's got a 95% chance of committing a crime.
Yeah.
I think what I mean is the culture of what it will change about the way we question these things. So we'll question them less and less. And I think.
So you think there's an air of inevitability?
I think unfortunately the major development will be through healthcare, military sort of applications, and I think some of those technologies will filter through to the stuff that we use. And then there's the relationship of the technology giants who create these sort of things like the Google Glass, and we benefit from those because they can help. We can do research into trips.
Yeah, because Sarah's chosen to wear all this technology to monitor herself.
Also very specific. It's not something that people are doing every day.
Yeah.
So you have this one-off example where the technology affords new information that if it didn't, you might not. It's a nice time to be doing it where you can use all these things.
Exactly.
So it's down. I just think some of the other applications and development will outweigh the research work.
I think especially as well for explorers in general, they get to go to these kind of really remote places that even people who are studying things like Antarctica and the Arctic, perhaps in their lab at university who are academics, they don't even get to go to these places. So, for example, on my role, I'm going to be collecting lots of data on plastic pollution, on marine debris, about the weather, which will then get fed to people like NASA and the Met Office. So I'll perhaps be able to collect data that wouldn't usually get collected. But one of the things, come back to your point there, is that even kind of without the wearable technology, when I register my boat, it actually gets kind of a tracking device put on it, which means that any sea user can actually see on a particular website, where my boat is at any given point, which in some ways is great because if anything happens at sea, people will know hopefully where I am. But for example, if I was rowing across the Atlantic Ocean, this could actually cause problems with things like piracy because people could actually come along and it has happened before that, and I think on the Indian Ocean as well, people have been rowing across the ocean, and pirates have kind of tracked them and come aboard, and obviously you don't have anything to kind of fight them off on a 20-foot boat that's just made of carbon. So that's kind of pros and cons really of being tracked.
Adrian, you talked a lot about games and gamification. I kind of noted some years ago that in fact I kind of realized that the society is changing, and I gave a talk about, it must be about 10 years ago now, where I kind of started to do a calculation about what year would it be that people graduating from university, i.e. about to a point in their life where they're about to make real contribution to society, what year would that be that graduating group of people had grown up being able to control the screen? I call it the kind of PlayStation generation, because when I was 15, didn't get a phone in the house until I was 15. But now people have grown up being able to switch on a screen and control what goes on the screen, and so if you like, the whole of learning at a very basic level is based on game playing. So I'm just kind of wondering if you've got a view about the importance of gamification, as it's called, in app development or information development.
Sure. I mean, I think you're right. The average age of a gamer now is in their 30s, and so we've definitely past the point where everyone has everyone aged 30 to 40 maybe has grown up with games their entire lives. And of course, it's not just young people. Everyone's got more access to games through their phones and things like that. I always have an allergic reaction to the word gamification, because what it implies is there's some kind of universal method to apply game mechanics to stuff like work or fitness.
Yeah, it does
or,
imply like a dumbing down. This
Yeah.
was serious, but we've made it into a
Well,
game because you need to be able to understand it.
It's also
Yes.
very kind of nudgy, like, oh, we're going to gamify energy use, therefore you'll use less energy, which kind of sounds good. But I had someone say, oh, I want to gamify our call center so they'll be happier answering calls. I thought maybe they just are not going to be happy answering calls. I don't know how. I don't think I can make a game that will make that any happier. But I have.
Maybe they just think it is a game, and that's why
Yeah, but as we
calling people out of the blue.
as we have more sensors that can track us, gamification loves using points and loves using levels and badges. And so I have a Fitbit. It tracks my steps. It puts those steps into a leaderboard and it gives me badges. And I read a really interesting article that says that this is kind of gamifying walking. But the problem is that exercise and walking shouldn't really be competitive for most people. If I look at my leaderboard on Fitbit, there's always a guy, damn him, who always is like walking more than me. And I kind of realized at one point, not only can I not beat this guy, I shouldn't, because that would be unhealthy. And so I think one of the things that, Internet of Things is kind of touching everything that has to do with technology. And I think one of the things we need to be very careful about is how we're motivated, how people are trying to motivate us to do things that may not be in our interests.
I'm just getting a message from over there. Lindsay, what's the message? We've got to finish. So we've got no time for questions from the audience. One very quick question from the audience. I've got two. I'm going to take two quick questions. One because I like your hair, no, please ask the question. Yeah.
In 1920, Kazimir Malevich wrote an essay, The World as Objectlessness, arguing that objects are constructs that don't exist. Isn't this forum based on a false premise? Or, in other words, before it gets any further, shouldn't the internet go through this self-cleansing system by meaningfully questioning at least fundamental assumptions? Isn't it dangerous to progress on any further before basic philosophical assumptions have been addressed?
That's a great question. Kazimir Malevich, of course, is famous for inventing abstract art by kind of taking the subject from the painting and making the painting the subject itself. So it's kind of interesting that he poses such a question. And I sort of agree that yes, a period of analysis of where we're at is useful. But I kind of think that that's what Jude has initiated with the Web We Want Festival, is to go through that. 25 years in, now is a time for some analysis and taking stock and re-looking at what we've got. And so I kind of think that's answering your question. I don't know whether the panel has got anything to add there.
When I was saying about the development in terms of military and healthcare and so on, actually there's another, because of the democratization of the web, there's little maker groups, hackers, festivals, and there's constant questioning of the way we use the way we use the web, but the internet as well. And I think there is lovely little pockets of, there's money for research as well through academia, because it's seen as a little bit a little bit geeky, some of these technologies. So as well as that, I think there is a constant, I think there's a constant questioning and discussion because of the nature of the web, for example, that allows other wider discussion of the internet and the way it's used anyway.
You probably want me to wind up now. That's a good place to stop. Yes. Analysis. Thank you very much for coming and listening. Thank you very much to my panelists, Adrian, Kevin, Matt, and Sarah. And thank you, Jude, for organising this fantastic festival.
Pleasure, and thanks, Malcolm, for being all together. Game on.